Welcome to the LS Carlson Law Podcast. I'm your host, Kirk Pearson, and I'm here with Johnny Zhang. He's joining us for this session. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
Just for our listeners, can you introduce yourself a little bit, talk about your background?
Yeah, sure. My name is Johnny Zhang. I was a first-generation immigrant, and I was born and raised in Wuhan. I moved here when I was 22 years old, so 2012. So I moved here. I studied in UK for 7 years before I come here. So when I first moved here, I started a construction company, then got into developments, then acquired the investment bank in 2019, then I got involved with blockchain, tokenized real estate, and then recently took one of my subsidiaries to OTC markets through a reverse split, and I did it last year. So yeah.
Yeah, and look, our firm does a lot of kind of business and real estate type law, and so having people like you on is helpful. I want to kind of focus on some of the real estate type business that you do, especially here in Southern California. I understand you're working on a condominium development deal currently. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we have two condominium deals right now. One is a 7 units in Glendale, where we already started construction last week. So, and we have another one in Santa Ana. It's 181 units. It's a mixed use. So it's 181 units residential condos. And then there's 15,000 square foot retail on the ground floor. So that retail could be condos as well. So we have condo map drafted, but I haven't recorded yet.
Okay. But the intent would be that bottom level be used for shops or restaurants, things like that.
Yeah. So previously, before we started this whole mixed use developments, we had Chase, Happy Burger, Wingstop, Springs, all these big tenants, Yogaland, and signed a lease with us. We want you to do retail. And the city goes, no. We don't want a store. We want a minimum 3 stores. So we went back and forth, and we went to this, eventually the 181 units mixed use, and those tenants don't want to come back. So it would be like AAA credit tenants, these banks, big restaurants like that chain.
What are some challenges that you've kind of faced as part of the real estate development deals that you've done, and particularly with condominiums and condominium associations?
So I typically, this is actually, to be honest, a bit my first condominium projects. So I'll normally build custom homes. We don't deal with HOAs or condominiums, and then we build apartments. So we just lease them out. We never have to deal with condos. So, but right now, because of the shortage in the housing, right, for sale housing, and the city is pushing hard on this, so they give us a lot of incentives to do that. So we're like, oh, let's do it, right? It makes more sense. We sell for more money in the short term. So that's what we did. But the concern that I have is the city wanted it, so to get the approval is easy, but the insurance price is really, really high. So we had to pay almost 5 times more more on the general liability insurance because we had to buy a wrap, right? Because most of the subcontractors, their insurance don't allow them to do condo projects. So we have to get a wrap as owner wrap insurance for those projects. They're really, really expensive. And another thing is I heard is you also got sued as a developer, right? Once you build a project, there's always little minor things that they can find and then sue you for damages. Insurance company at the end, most of them tend to settle with them, right? So yeah, I heard that's another liability as well.
Yeah, and I can say, before I came to LS Carlson Law, worked for some insurance defense firms where we did construction defect type litigation, and that is something that comes up frequently with these new build developments where whether it's mixed use, commercial, or residential, eventually you're likely going to have a construction defect lawsuit that will come up where nothing's ever perfect, and so things will come up, and whether it's the condominium association or one of the tenants or somebody will sue because there's problems with the construction, and that tends to then bring everybody back together. The developer, the general contractor, all the subcontractors. And you're right. I mean, insurance can be an issue because you've got a lot of layers of people working on these projects. Everybody's got their own policies, right? The subcontractors and contractors have their own general liability or various forms of insurance. The developers have, whether it's a wrap policy, and trying to sort out, who's got the liability. It can take years and it can turn into a very complicated lawsuit. One thing that can help with that is getting, a good lawyer involved, having a good team of people. How have you kind of navigated that process?
Well, so we do have a good insurance broker. They actually help review the subcontractors' their policies, and then we'll have a really good construction defect attorney that we use and help us review all the policy on top of that. So fortunately, never got a suit, knock on wood. So, but in this wrap insurance, so they strongly recommend us use a wrap is to avoid all this chaos, right? So we have our own policy. We can actually ask for credit and discount from the subs because we don't have to use their insurance, right? So we just basically use our insurance to protect everything. We know what we're covered, what we're not covered. So that's more easy for us to manage the risk.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's come up on this podcast before, and we push it a lot, which is planning ahead, right? Having a good team of people around you, kind of looking further out, assuming that things will not work out perfectly. So making sure you've got a good broker, good accountants, good lawyers, you've got adequate insurance, because things, there's inevitably problems that come up, during the process or even further on down the road.
Definitely, I've had a lot of bad experience. When you have bad attorneys, they can fuck up the whole case for you, right? And then, when I have bad insurance brokers, they get you insurance that's you don't even get covered, right?
Yeah,
a lot of exclusions like they don't tell you about, you don't read about it, you don't even know you are not covered, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, picking the right people is a big deal. It's like it's not enough just to have an accountant or have a lawyer or have a good insurance broker. You need to have the right ones to make sure that they're looking out for your best interests and helping you out.
I mean, I feel like there's more incompetent people out there than the competent people. So you really have to dig through and find the right partner to work with.
Yeah. What have you done to kind of make sure that you're working with the right people or to find the right counsel, the right?
It's mostly referrals, like you find a good one, you ask them to refer the people they trust, they work with. I think that's the best case, right? The reviews is not really sometimes correct, right? You can find a guy with really good reviews, but you don't know if they're really good or not, right?
Yeah.
And they're you don't know if it's the right suit for you as well. I think I still trust referral the best. You have to find one good guy that you work with, and then you just basically go on his referrals. Yeah.
No, that's helpful. Finding somebody that does what you do that can recommend somebody that they've worked with. Sometimes it's not the review or that it's a bad review. Sometimes it's like a personality mix, right? You might find somebody that has good reviews that is very good, but maybe the insurance broker isn't a good fit for your business, or the lawyer's not a good fit for your business or your personality. And that can be a big deal.
That's right. I mean, everybody have their specialties, right? You really need to find someone that specializes in something you do, right? That you can help you with, right? Like attorneys, like, for example, you guys do HOA, but there's a lot of attorneys don't do HOAs. You don't find a HOA with very good reviews, a lot of 5 stars, but they don't do HOA. And I can help you HOA, but they're not really good at it. Right?
No, yeah, that's definitely true. And I think there's a tendency for people to not want to say no, say, hey, this is not something that we can do. And it's helpful to make sure that you're getting somebody that's actually specializes in what you do, that is good at, for example, development deals, big real estate development deals, because there's a lot of contracts involved. There's a lot of particular needs, and not every law firm can do that.
Exactly. I mean, it's so complicated in terms of developments, right? You're dealing with over 100 different stakeholders, right? Contractors, engineers, they all have insurance. It's a nightmare to do any type of development project. So you really need a really good team around you that you can trust, and then to get you through.
Yeah, and those development deals, top to bottom, you're not just dealing with contractors, but it's the contractors, it's the financing, business side, it's governmental and administrative agencies that you're dealing with, because you got to get permits and make sure that everything's getting approved, so the work doesn't get stopped and everything can just proceed smoothly.
Yeah, it depends on the deals, right? Sometimes you have to deal with just the city. If you have HOA, you deal with HOAs, and the city have different departments, right? Public works, planning departments, and and buildings, and then you sometimes have to deal with the outside agency like fish and games, right? Then wildlife, and then there's coastal commissions. Right, we'll have to deal with the coastal commission for one of our projects. That took us a long time to get approval. Sometimes, like Army Corps, if you do something in the mountains, we have a resorts we're building in the mountains. We have to deal with the Army Corps. We have to do EIR. That's another whole blown, 2-year process with different 10, 20 different like engineers doing reports, traffics, all kind of it's crazy. And sometimes you get sued by the environmentalist. You have to deal with them too.
Right. Yeah. No. And I don't think we can reiterate enough how important it is to have a team, because no one person is going to be able to handle all of that and all of the specialization that requires.
Exactly. I mean, fortunately, we have an in-house architect. So that actually helped me a lot. Because I used to work with outside architects, right? Just hire really good, big, firm, architect firm. They're really good, but they're not always available for you. They're really slow in response. So that will actually delay my project, for years and years. And after having an in-house architects, things get done so much faster. We still work with outside architect firm for them to do design because they're really good at it, and they do drafting. They're really good, but for communication-wise, dealing with the government, dealing with other stakeholder, and project management-wise, having in-house architect is tremendously helped us expedite the process of getting entitlements.
What's helped that? Just having somebody that's dedicated just to you, or that?
Exactly. So they have more time. They can actually respond a lot faster. If people don't give them what they need back, and they can follow up on them much quicker. I typically deal with architects where it's big firm. When you deal with them, the term is 2 weeks, 2 weeks. And I'm trying to get a call with them and try to get an engineer, put together on a call.
Sure.
It's normally 2-3 weeks to even put them together on a call. And then after they have the call, then they do their things. They come back in another 2 weeks. So a month is gone. Nothing's done. So that's really inefficient. But having an in-house architect is right there. He answers the question right there. If you need something from an engineer, he just call the engineers. And he typically get a call back in the same day. He got things done the same day.
And so you're not reaching out to an architect and then waiting for them to get back to you and then reaching out to the people that you need. They're right there at hand.
Exactly. Most architects firm, they have a senior architect that deal with you, and they have a project manager, and then the drafters oversee, right? So they have a lot of layers too. So for them to get something done is not that quick, right? Even though they're the big firms, right? So we have to deal with one of the structural engineers. This guy just always on vacation, and and you need him to go on job site to do observation. He says, "Oh, I'm on vacation." I'm like, "Anybody can cover you?" He goes, "Oh, no, really."
Yeah. No, I mean, the design professional aspect can really slow down a project too, because you need them involved throughout the whole duration of the project. It's not just at the first phase when you're doing the actual design. They've got to be there to help.
Yeah, the construction administration is really important, and a lot of people don't pre-negotiate their contracts. But if you don't, they're gonna charge arm's lengths. They're really expensive.
Yeah.
So the civil engineers and the structural engineers always have to be there to do the observations. Yeah,
that's excellent. If we can kind of change topics a little bit, I know you're really big into blockchain. Can you kind of explain your involvement with blockchain and what your company does?
So, well, I really like technology innovations, right? So when blockchain first came about, I really liked it, but I never find it's interesting to me, particularly because there's no intrinsic value, right? Bitcoin, for example, good assets now it's become like a digital gold, right? Everyone's buying this, and I bought it too. But there's no intrinsic value, right? I still struggle around it. So, and then about 2021, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do something that has intrinsic value. I'm going to use the benefit that blockchain offers, which is the transparency, the instant settlements, the accessibilities, right? And then because it's public ledger, right? It's trusted by all the people. It can't be breached. It's more security features as well. It's more secured. So I want to use that feature to better real estate. So that's what I did. So I was like, okay, if I use blockchain on real estate, then I can make the illiquid real estate investment become more liquid, right? I can make it more accessible to the global investors, right? So that's what I did. So I wrote a white paper in end of 2021. I launched my token called the USP, United States Property Token, in early 2022. So that's more as an experiment to see if this works. And I have to do in compliance, because another issue is a lot of people issue their tokens. They're actually raising money, right? But they actually should be categorized as securities, but they're not really in compliance with security laws. That's why SEC was suing them, right? Suing a lot of people, right? So there's this Howey test. You really have to read it through to see if your project is security or not, right? A lot of projects, they're like, we're in a gray area. I'm just not gonna deal with it. That's okay, but we're offering shares, digital share of our real estate, so that's for sure security. So we had to build our customized smart contract, build the DApp, build the KYC database, do all that, make sure it's in compliance. That cost me a lot of money.
Yeah.
So
well, and I'm assuming that's to avoid some of the issues we've seen with like the quote unquote meme coins, like the Haktua girl that did a pump and dump with her product, and some of these other meme coins that come out where the value shoots up just because it's popular on TikTok or Instagram, and then the value ends up dropping.
Well, like Trump coin too, right?
Yeah, well, sure.
Same thing is like, so it's much easy. Okay, it costs you nothing to issue your ERC20 standard token right now. If you want to issue a meme coin, there's a lot of like a coin launcher out there. You can use it. You can issue a coin for like few $100. It's so much easier to do that. All you got to do is just market the token, then hype it, and then just sell them, dump it, right? That's it, hype and dump. That's how the game works, right? It feels like it's like a stock market before there's rules around it. It's like the Wild West, right? Basically, it's all Ponzi schemes. It's all scams, but Ponzi scheme lasts longer than this. This is shorter than Ponzi scheme. This is like a micro Ponzi scheme. This is the life cycle is normally for new tokens typically like a few days, right? A bigger project like Trump maybe lasts for a few months, but that's it, right? It's like kind of like crazy, right? So I never liked it, right? I always think the investment should be in something that has a real life value, right? So that's why I only did real estate. I mean, this RWA thing's really popular right now, the real world assets. I think it's getting more popular right now because people are actually getting tired of, getting scams in these meme coins. They want to invest in something that's real value.
Right.
So,
yeah. Can you, for our listeners that may not be super familiar with, blockchain and, some of these, I guess, electronic assets. Can you explain what blockchain is and how it works? So, just in a very general way.
Yeah, pretty simple way. Think about blockchain as like a public ledger. All right. So everything on blockchain is recorded on a public ledger. Anybody can see it. And because there's so many nodes, like millions of nodes, like everybody have their own records. So nobody can alter the data. So it's really secured public ledger. That's literally what blockchain is. It's not magical, right? So say if you have your digital shares recorded on the public ledger, anybody can see it and nobody can steal it. So you can like basically transfer it anytime you want on the public ledger. Everybody can see it. Just more transparent. It's more secured. And then because the public ledger exists on blockchain, nobody can have control over it. So you don't need any middleman to transfer anything. You cut off the middlemen. Right?
So you don't have a Bernie Madoff or somebody like that who can cover things up or hide what the transaction is.
You can't do that with blockchain. It's all public, right? Anybody can see anything. So people think, oh, I can do fraud. Drug dealer use that for drug. No, that's not the case. It's all public. They can actually trace everything, right? It's more transparent than ever. That's why Elon Musk is saying, oh, put government's spending on blockchain because it's more transparent, it's more secured, right? That's literally what blockchain is. So if you think it's a public ledger, then anything need to be recorded on a ledger can be on blockchain. Like people think about putting property titles on blockchain, right? HOAs. What if HOAs put their spending on the public ledger? Then it's more transparent. Homeowner can see anytime, right?
Exactly.
So anything can be on public ledger. So that's literally what blockchain is,
Then can you elaborate a little bit on what your company is doing as far as using the blockchain for purposes of real estate investment?
So, okay, there's two ways to use blockchain in real estate that I know of, right? So of course there's more other ways to do it. But so I've seen other people do is like basically, I'm going to put property title on the blockchain so you can buy and sell real estate as an NFT or as a coin, whatever they do it on there. And basically the title transfer, the title is the coins representing the title, right? That's basically replacing the title company. But I don't see that working on that as the government adopts it, right? Because right now the title is recorded at the county's recorder's office. A private entity cannot override that, right? They don't have authority to do that.
Right.
But I think it's coming up. I think once the government start adopting it, I think that could be the future. It'll be much easier to do. But again, that's still involved with a problem where, hey, do you need to inspect the property or not, right? There's a lot of things you have to do before you buy a property, right? Yeah, you can make transfer easy, but then you still have to do a lot of that, like
the due diligence.
Exactly, before you buy the property. So that's one thing. Then another way to use it is basically, tokenize the digital shares. So all the shares right now are already digitalized, right? You see all their stocks, everything's digitalized, right? You can buy and sell stocks of anything, including real estate, digitalized. But it's not liquid unless you're on a stock market. I say, for example, you buy a private real estate fund or any fund, any small business, you have a share, right? So then you see if you have fund investor investing in your company, then you give them the paper certificates.
Yes.
They get that. Okay. So when they want to sell the paper certificates, what do they do? They find an investor themselves. There's no marketplace for that. And then they have to then find an investor, then get the money, sign their name on back of the paper certificates, turn to the company. If they ever transfer, turn to the transfer agents, then to record the share transfer, right? Then that could be a fraud. Well, how do you know if the signature is authentic or not? Right? That's a lengthy process too. Find an investor, do the transaction yourself, and then sign the paper, send it back. The company may the missing the mail. There's all these kind of complicated things could be missing. So that's why existing market there's almost no liquidity if you invest in private companies, right? Unless only liquidity is like when they redeem the shares, whatever. So, but if that replace the paper certificate into a digital token that's recorded on blockchain, now it's all authentic, right? You don't have to sign anything. Just like, you know what, I'm going to transfer it to you. You take your wallet out. I know your private address, no public address, sorry, no public address. I just transfer it to you. It's done, right? And the company don't even need a transfer agent anymore because it's all the blockchain replaces transfer agent, right? You can
the
literally
blockchain documents and shows the chain of title, the transfer itself.
And what we did is, because we're selling securities, there's a U.S. law that basically prohibits the share being transferred. For example, if you sold your shares through a Reg D 506C publicly to a credit investor, you cannot allow them to sell those shares to a non-credit investor within a year. So you have to put a block on that. Say, hey, you can transfer to any credit investor within a year, but you cannot transfer to a non-credit investor a year. Well, how do you know that? Because they only recognize wallet address when you transfer. So, because the blockchain allows you to transfer any token at any time you want without any middleman, without any restrictions. But to stay in compliance with the law, we have to add restrictions on top of the blockchain. That's what we did. So we have a customized smart contract. We add the restrictions on there. We basically presets the restrictions on this type of token. Goes, hey, look, this tranche of the token we sold on the 506D, 506C on the Reg D can only be sold to a credit investor within a year. And then after 1 year it unlocks, now you can sell to a non-credit investor. And all the investor have to create an account with us, KYC with us, and then to do a credit investor verification with a third party to see if they're a credit investor or not. So it's a really complicated process, but that's the only way to make sure your coin stays in compliance.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking questions is I'm very interested by this. I think this, like AI, is kind of what is coming in the future, right? Is the integration or use of blockchain for things like real estate transactions, because again, it's streamlined so long as the process incorporates or relies upon, various regulations. It's an easy way to document things. It's very secure. It's very open and transparent. And I mean, is that kind of your position? Is that this is going to be what things will be like in the future?
It's 100% going to be the future, right? Yeah. And not only I said it, Larry Fink said it too, right? Larry Fink's the CEO of BlackRock and the biggest asset manager in the world. He actually said the tokenization will be the next generation of the market. And eventually everything will be tokenized, right? You will actually reduce a lot of the corruptions too, because it was more transparent, right? Elon Musk is trying to do that with the government, right? With his Doge. And then Jamie Dimon, well known, he hates Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
But he is still adopting blockchain. He's actually JP Morgan actually have their own tokenized money market fund. So they see the value of blockchain, but it has to be used in something that has real utility, real value, not something that's like a meme coin like you talked about earlier, right? So that's definitely the future. It just makes a lot of sense, right? Say your shares or any real world asset, any equities, debts, bonds, notes, real estate. If it's on the blockchain, it's more transparent, it's more secured, and more accessible to the global investors. Think about it, global investors, for them to buy into real estate in the US is extremely hard, unless they're really wealthy, of course. But for regular people, it's really hard. It's really hard to open a brokerage account, right, as a foreigner. And then you have no access to private market too.
Right.
So with blockchain, you do, right? A lot of other peers I've seen is using blockchain to raise money from overseas investors, because now they actually have access to private real estate deals they never had access before. So that's another benefit. Then, and of course, on the secondary markets, once you have the token, it's much easier to sell those tokens after investing in the property. It opens up another markets have way better liquidity than before, right? So previously, private deals have no liquidity at all.
Yeah, it makes it more trustworthy on the secondary market, or as things are moving forward. There's not the uncertainty that exists now.
Exactly. You can see these, you are the real owner because it's on blockchain, right? There's nobody can alter the data, right?
Yeah, so, and look, I think this is a helpful subject for everybody, like you say, even regular people, to kind of get familiar with and understand, because I think both the financial markets as well as the real estate market will depend more and more heavily on blockchain as things go forward. And it may not just be like meme coins or Bitcoin, whatever it is, but it's really going to be the integration of Bitcoin into, like you say, tangible assets like houses, businesses, things like that, stock certificates, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Because also think about it. If all your shareholder record is on blockchain, you actually reduce your compliance costs by a lot, right? You don't have to spend too much money managing it. You don't have to pay for anything on blockchain, right? It's just always there, right? And the users are the one that paying the gas fee to transfer each other. So it doesn't really cost the company a lot. So I've seen companies save a lot of money by using blockchain compared to traditional way. They have them, add them in their own fund, have hire transfer agents, do all that. I mean, you just save a lot of money in compliance costs too.
Yeah. Now, if we can, I'd like to talk about kind of your own real estate development project that you have going on in Dana Point right now with Symphony.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about what Symphony is and what you're doing?
Okay, so that's complicated projects. So, so Symphony is a 22,000 square foot custom homes where we bought the land in 2012. Sorry, 2014. Yeah, 2014. Then took us 6 years to get entitlements, and that's because of what we deal with the coastal commissions, which is the hardest agency to deal with in California.
Yeah, they're notorious. I mean, anybody that's had any involvement on the coast knows that the Coastal Commission in California is one of the most difficult regulatory agencies to deal with.
Exactly. It's I don't want to say a bad thing about them, but they're not really, real estate people. They don't really care about their projects. They care about protecting the environments, right? So it's really hard to do any developments because they don't want developments. They don't want any impacts. So, but our property is kind of not by the ocean. It's kind of like in the mountain, right? So it's like I'm surprised they have jurisdiction all the way over there. It's like they have a huge jurisdiction over those. So even the cities are basically scared of them. The city goes, oh, whatever. We're going to approve you. I want to hold off until you get the coastal commission approval before I give you the approval.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like everything when you ask them something, it goes, oh, did the coastal commission approve that? It's always refer back to coastal commissions, right?
Well, and you always hear people kind of whisper like the coastal commission. Like nobody wants to be real vocal because they do wield a lot of power and they have a lot of control over development, remodels, whatever, anything having to do with real estate along that coastal section that they're responsible for, they control it.
Exactly. So the land was 15 acres. We were, going to do lot distributions and do 15 different homes. They said, no, we'll only allow you to do one. And their previous owner actually fought with them too. They wanted to do the same thing. And then they fought with them. They actually sued the Coastal Commission. They've sued for many years. They've lost. Of course, they never win. Nobody can win against them. So that's
true. Yeah. It's difficult.
It's really hard. I mean, I'll take it back. I would say nobody, but like really, really hard to win against them, right? So
yeah.
And so I went to the hearing. I was approved, by the way, on that day, so I was really lucky. But I heard another guy have a project in like Santa Barbara somewhere. He spent 20 years trying to get approval from Coastal Commission. That's his 20th year appearing and hearing. He's still fighting that case. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I was so lucky. It only took me 6 years to get approval.
Well, and it's kind of funny to hear you say only 6 years, but I mean, compared to 20 years, I mean, that's pretty quick.
Exactly. So we started construction in 2020, and then we had to build these huge retaining walls and a big earth movement because we're literally cutting the hills, right? The retaining wall is like 30 feet high. So, and I'll send you some pictures and videos you can maybe show to the audience later.
Yeah.
But my friend was joking with me. He goes, Johnny, you're building the Great Wall of Orange County because it's a massive retaining wall you can see on the PCH.
Yeah, you can see it up on the hill, kind of at Dana Point from PCH.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah,
and their city required to basically put all these stone veneer on top of those rocks that cost us over $1 million just to put the stone veneer on there, just to make it look good.
Yeah.
Then we'll have to put the vines, the green, plants around it. I'm like, then what's the point to put stone veneer when you're gonna have plants over it anyway? Nobody can see the stone veneer behind it. But what you do all that, so we spent a lot of extra money because the city required the aesthetic, right? They want to look nice. And
and just to stop you there, that might be something that's surprising to people that haven't been through this process before, is that it's not just about building code requirements, but there are aesthetic considerations that the city, county, coastal commission will weigh in on as well.
Mm-hmm.
They will want it to look a particular way. They're not just there to kind of make sure that it meets environmental requirements or building code requirements. They actually care about what it looks like.
They definitely do. I mean, every city have their different preferences, right? So we do a lot of different cities. Every city is different. But talking about that, HOA has a lot of, I guess, say over that. I mean, we literally had a friend who owns a property in one of their community, I think Pelican Heights somewhere in the Newport Coast. And they literally only allow you to use like a few colors. That's it. You can have the same color with your neighbors, and then it's like they have a board for that's the color you can use. That's it. You can't even paint the house any color you want.
Yeah,
they have so much restriction on those, so it's kind of like hard to deal with. But cities sometimes a loser on that. They have say, okay, here's a style you can do, and then that's it. But HOA typically have way more strict rules, right? Say for example, I think most Newport Coast places you can't do modern houses. Don't allow you to do modern housing, no contemporary, nothing. You can do Mediterranean, Spanish, or like a few, very few style you can do, right?
Yeah.
So we're lucky because we're not in the HOA. So we did a really contemporary, curvy type of buildings that people are surprised you can get approved. I'm like, well, we don't, because we don't have HOAs.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I've seen the renderings. It is beautiful looking. Other than kind of dealing with the Coastal Commission and maybe the city, what are some other challenges that you've been faced with or dealt with in building Symphony?
Okay, so it took longer than expected, right? So we bought the land 2014. We thought, okay, well, our budget's $20 million to build all this, and it took 6 years. Construction price went up a lot, right? Especially after COVID. Right now, our budget's the cost to finish is $15 million. So it just went up like 2.5 times.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's one is the cost, and then another thing is the city was not really helpful in aspect of a way because they don't give us all the permit at once. So every city is different. Some city give you one permit and then for all the grading, everything, then give another permit for the building. That's it, right? City of Dana Point doesn't like it. They give you a permit per retaining walls. So once you finish this one, they give you another permit. Once you finish one, they give you another permit. So we actually had 5-6 permits we to deal with, and we have to post bond on those permits. They don't really easily issue the bonds. They buy their own words. And it's a lot of times it's just basic back and forth with the city, right? So we're having big delays because of that. We can't really do a lot of things together. We'll have to do one thing at a time, a very small portion of the job at a time.
Just do it kind of one step at a time as you're clearing the process with the city.
Yes, sometimes they have a lot of back and forth. They say, okay, well, here are the conditions you have to meet. So, okay, we meet them. They go to them. It goes, oh, here's like 10 more, right? Then you do it. It goes, oh, here's another 20 more. I'm like, why don't you tell me everything at once? They don't, right? And so took us 4 years to get almost all done. We're not all done yet, but we're trying to get a building permit. Then they gave us a checklist of 170 items, so I have to meet all the conditions. They never give us any of that before. So I was like, wait, I'm trying to build a permit. Now you hit me with this? So you go address all of that. It's just a lot of that, delaying the projects, right?
Yeah.
But so yeah, we're almost gonna start building the house, and then probably gonna take another 3 years to finish it. So by the time we're done, it's 2028. That'll be a 14-year project.
Well, and that was what I was going to ask you, is when you anticipate it's being done. So you think another 3 years from now.
3 years from now, yeah.
Okay. So
just given how slow people work here, not just the city, but also the contractors, right?
Sure.
And the subs, and then the materials. I heard there was a shortage on the electronic gears. There's probably going to be shortage for everything now because of the fire in Pacific Palisades, right? 15,000 building burned.
Yeah, and I was just going to ask you about that. If you're anticipating that the issues with the LA fires are going to impact your construction time frame.
I think the price is going to go up. I don't really see that it's going to really affect us because we already have all the contractors already signed a contract with it. They're already on board.
Sure.
And then plus it's a big project, right? People are going to probably more, I guess, rather stay in my project and then go to the other project because it can be their good portfolio for them, right?
Yeah, they're not gonna push you aside so that they can go do something else. Yeah.
Exactly, right. So plus it's good profit. I'm not paying them. I'm actually paying them a lot more, so they're getting good pay. But I see, people saying that LA fires are gonna maybe recover in 3-4 years. I'm like, no, wait, they're gonna take more than 10 years to recover just because of how slow people are. It is crazy that how slow the governments or also the contractors are.
Well, and I think those of us that are involved in real estate, whether it be legally or as a broker or development here in Southern California, know that when they're saying, oh, it's going to be a couple of years, that seems very optimistic given the involvement of the Coastal Commission for the homes in Malibu and even some of the homes in the Palisades. Like it's going to take a lot longer than I think people think.
Exactly. And a lot of custom homes, they're design build. So the plan doesn't have all the details. So you literally build as you go, and you come up with the details as you go. That takes ridiculous amount of time to do that.
Yeah.
Versus when you build commercials, every detail is drafted, right? I've seen commercial projects finish on time, but I've never seen a single custom homes finish on time.
Right.
They always drag longer time. They always do. It's because the architects, again, working on these kind of homes, they never give you all the details too. A lot of people don't hire interior designers. So when it comes to interior decisions, it took a long time to decide what kind of floor you're going to use, what kind of pattern you want to use, what kind of cabinet you're going to use. There's so many choices out there. And if you don't think ahead of time, when you get to that point, everything stops because you haven't made the decision yet.
Yeah,
So
and look, that is definitely true, and I think that is what creates a lot of slowdown and problems for people that are building custom homes or complex, development projects. Is there's so many details, there's so many people involved that it is just ripe for conflict and litigation. So that again, it's important to have people helping you out to kind of smooth that process out because you can have problems with material suppliers, with contractors, with city agencies, neighbors that are getting annoyed that the project is dragging on or the noise is too loud. There's any number of things that can come up that can cause problems for projects like that.
yeah, well, there's so many factors like you mentioned. So I've never seen a project, finish smoothly. There's always something going on with the project. So you really have to have a good team to deal with all this problem that come up.
Yeah. Just to kind of finish out, what are some things that you are looking forward to most in the real estate area moving forward?
Okay, so a few things. Definitely, first one is the tokenization. I really think that's going to take over all the current system. So, of course, I'm mostly in real estate, so I'm actually working on a tokenization platforms because I have a lot of peers asking me, "Hey, Johnny, can you help me tokenize my properties? Your property is great, but I'm not a retail investor. I want to buy your tokens, right? I have my own projects. I need help from you." So we're actually doing a platform that helps all the private business owners, developers to actually tokenize their project. So we're going to primarily focus on real estate, but it's the same thing. The security law is the same, right, for everything. So we're going to be able to also help other small business owners, funds to tokenize their the securities, then into a security token that's big, allow them to sell to the global investors at a much cheaper cost. So just so I spent over $2 million to develop my own technology like a few years ago. Because I was, I guess, the first timer to do everything. I paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
And wasted a lot of money, by the way. Not the true cost. But if I'm going to do that again, it could probably cost me like $200,000-$300,000 to do it, right? Because I have a good team that's really cheap. I've used it for a long time.
Right.
But that's still too expensive for a lot of people, right? Think about it. If you're a developer, you don't want to pay $200,000-$300,000 to tokenize your project, right? So I was like, hey, why don't I do a platform? I streamline everything, put everything on the one place. I just add your token on to my existing system. You can just use my system or make it way cheaper. So I talked to my developer. We're able to do it, say, for under $20,000. I can help you tokenize your project, fully compliant with the US laws, and we'll help you manage all the compliance costs afterwards too, just do on blockchain. So reduce the compliance costs as well. That allow you to easily raise money from global investors and still manage your shareholders, make sure they're in compliance.
Okay.
And then $20,000, a lot of people now can afford it, right? So that's what I'm doing right now. Still on the developments, but that's something I'm looking at right now.
It's on the horizon. That's coming.
Exactly.
Okay.
Hopefully, it will come up end of this year.
Okay.
If not, maybe next year. Takes some time. But I think the reason why I'm doing right now because of the Trump in office right now, he's really pro crypto. He had this new SEC chair who set up the new crypto task force, right? Who's going to come up with a new clear regulations about it. And we already know institutional investors like JP Morgan and BlackRock already playing that. I've seen all these other people already issued Bitcoin ETF. So they're all in this space. So I do see once the clear regulation comes out, they're going to see more people in the tokenization of the real world asset space.
Sure.
So that's definitely cleared a lot of concerns people have about regulations, about institutional investors' interest.
It's becoming more mainstream.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. Another thing I'm looking at is like the basic construction tech. So we're exploring 3D printing to be utilizing our project to save a lot of labor costs. As you know, construction prices really, really high in California because of the labor cost.
Sure.
If you go to Texas, you go to Nevada, you can build a house for under $200 a square foot. Here it's $400, right? Materials the same. It's all the labor costs, right?
Right.
So if I can get rid of labor costs, I can reduce the price by a lot. So basically 3D printing, think about like more like a robotic in a machine that basically be able to do not all of them, but certain type of construction trades, then basically rid of the labor's costs on that. So that's what I'm doing right now to try to streamline, reduce my expenses on the construction cost.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also modular system I'm looking at right now. There's 2 companies that's currently approved by the state of California that allow you to manufacture those homes in overseas, then ship them over here, and then you can just assemble them together on site.
Okay, assemble them on site.
Normally, city don't like it because they lose revenue from the inspections, right? All that. But if you're approved by the state of California, legally you can do it. But there's only 2 companies that I know of that approved. So I'm working with one of them right now to see if I can use that on my project too. So it's really the biggest problem with the developments right now, last few years being really, really bad because the cost is really high. Interest rates high, construction cost is really high, and their selling price is lower because of interest rates high too, right? So
Yes.
the price is low, demand is less. So that's the biggest problem. So I'm really working on trying to resolve that problem is by reducing the cost of construction. And I can't really do anything about interest rate. It is what it is, right? So, but what I can do is try to reduce construction costs to bring the cost lower. So.
Yeah, and look, I think the things you're working on are really of need here in California because we have a housing shortage. Prices are really high. That's well known throughout the country, and like you say, a lot of it is due to cost of materials and cost of labor. And anything that can be done to kind of cut down on those costs will make the housing shortage less and will make it easier to build homes that people want to live in and can afford.
Exactly. Now you mentioned that the 15,000 households property was burned in Pacific Palisades fire, and all those houses mostly are burned built by wood, right? That's why they're catching on fire easily. So this technology I'm using on 3D printing, they're basically building those houses with concrete.
Yes.
Rebar and concrete. So type 1 H construction typically will be really expensive, like $1,000 per square foot to build that. But now with that robotic system, it's half the price. Think about it, you build the half the price, which is the same price as wood, but you got a concrete building. It's not really flammable.
Exactly. It's resistant to fire. It's better for energy, for example.
Yeah.
Staying cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter, things like that.
Exactly. You can build a roof on this. I see their technology is insane. They can actually print all the patterns. You can have wood, marble, all kind of looking on the concrete and print all kind of pattern you want. And it's so much faster. This guy did a project in Upland. So typically a framing job will take about 1 to 2 months, depends on if you're the good guys or not. They get it done in 56 hours.
That's crazy.
It's like reducing construction costs so much faster. And also, they're able to use recycled materials. So all these materials are recycled. So all these foundations, they can basically recycle those materials into reuse them again. So that's basically sustainable, component that I think is really attractive to me because those materials are otherwise going to be wasted.
Right.
We can recycle them and use them. They're going to reduce another layer of cost on that too.
Yeah.
Right. They have a machine literally. You can put in all the foundation in there. They'll grind all the concretes and then reuse the concretes. That will speed out all the rebars. You can then recycle the rebars and reuse it somewhere else. It's kind of insane technology they're using. I'm surprised that nobody's using here in California. So
yeah, and part of it may be that it's just so new that it's not as tested or useful. But I think it's amazing that you've got your eye that far out on the horizon because I think these are the kinds of things that we really need in California. Even for just not big, large scale developments, but for, the everyday homeowner to try to, construct a home that is livable, that's less expensive and doable for a lot of people.
Yeah, a lot of homeowners who lost their homes in the fire cannot afford to rebuild them. It's too expensive. The house probably, they bought it many years ago was so much cheaper. Even with the insurance company paying them, they don't have the money to rebuild the houses because that's so expensive right now.
Right.
Then, by the way, the technology I've talked about, there's another company who actually built a whole community in Texas out of 3D printing. It's pretty crazy. And then one thing I didn't mention is the 3D printing, the benefit is they can print the house in different, really ridiculous curvy shape that you can't do with a human, right? If you do by contractor, it's really expensive to do any of that. But the machine can print any pattern you want. The house can be oval shaped. It can be circle, can be all kind of shape. It's crazy that it can do really crazy design and then still you keep the construction costs down because of 3D printing technology.
Yeah, you're not going to be stuck with just a normal box-shaped house. You can do something that may be more aesthetically pleasing or a more interesting design that is still more accessible to somebody with a normal person's budget as opposed to somebody, that's building a very expensive custom home.
Yeah, you can have a really unique design just to yourself and still keep the cost down with the 3D printing. I'm actually trying to use that for my symphony projects because I have these big, this roof,
like that curving arch roof.
Exactly, the arch roof, and it's really exciting to build it. If I can print that, that'd be so much cheaper, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I would encourage people to look up the renderings for Symphony because you can see, it's an amazing looking project. It has those big arches that are built in. It's right up there against the hillside. And
that was one of the challenges to figure out how to build the arch. It was so large, it was so expensive. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. The stuff you've shared has been very interesting, and I think is helpful for people to look forward to what's coming down the pike for real estate here in California and elsewhere in the country.
Yeah, thank you. I do want to mention that I have a podcast too.
Oh yeah,
It's
go ahead.
called a
Yeah, please mention
It's
it.
called a real estate. It's called a future-proof real estate podcast. So we talk about anything to do with technology, implication of real estate, and any strategies that we use to make sure the real estate is future-proof. So if anybody interested, please just search for future-proof real estate.
Yeah, so
You'll find them.
future-proof real estate podcast. And then where else can people find you if they wanted to look you up?
Well, I'm on all the social media. So YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Instagrams, Facebook, not on TikTok actually. So
Okay.
yeah, but just search my name, Johnny Zhang, and you'll be able to find me.
And that's ZHANG.
JOH and then EY, actually E my
Yes.
name, and then Z for zebra, ZHANG.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, again, Johnny, thank you for joining us. This is the LS Carlson Law Podcast. Thank you to Johnny for joining us, and we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you.